Diplomacy is not an option. It's an amazing city builder, survival strategy game with RTS element. Sitting at 90% positive review on Steam, it's definitely a great one, but it is not an easy game. You know, how do you survive those endless waves of attack like this? Well, making them explode can help, like this. But more importantly, let me share my top 10 tips, as well as a perfect start guide for you to thrive, survive, and master this game. First of all, let's start with my perfect starting guide. Regardless of the mission, regardless of the difficulty setting, I feel like you should always do the same few things at the beginning of the game. On day 0, on day 1, when you start, go for wood. You're gonna need a lot of wood. This is the easiest resource, and usually you have a lot of wood around you, versus you may not even have stone. Like we have 1 stone there, but you may not have that. So start placing some wood. It's worth noting, by the way, that your people, they're gonna start building the buildings in the order you place them. So it is a very bad idea to, for example, put 1 here, then 1 there, then 1 there, because that means they walk here, then they walk all the way there, then they walk there. Instead, you want to put it more a bit in a clock or anti-clockwise rotation, right? For example, I'm going to put 1 here, then 1 there, then 1 there, right? So that way they walk in the right order. So first, really wood. And it was noting that pretty much again in every single mission, you will not need to produce food on day 1. There is no need to produce food on day 1. Why? Because you always start with some. I mean, look at this one, for example, I have 80 food right now. My consumption is 22. So I can stay a few days without producing anything and I'll be fine. So don't waste resources on day 1 on wood. Try to make as many as possible of these lumber mill. This is basically going to be limited by your number of people because each of them takes 2 workers. All right? So you put as many as you can. Then, while this is being built, you're gonna start taking your army and try to find resources. For example, here, there is wood, right? So you want to capture this wood ASAP. I can also see some stone there, so that could be useful. With those resources, and especially if you found some stone, go into your research and try to do some first. So if you have some stone, for example, this first one over here, comfortable shoes, which increases the movement speed, which basically means it increases the productivity of pretty much all of your people, you know, lumberjack, miners, berry picker, etc. You may also want, especially if you do have, you know, if you start in a bit more easy mode, you have a lot of wood, then start doing some of these 2 here. And then after, you know, your people have built all of those lumber mills and you don't have any people left, you're going to want to get more people, which means you're going to want to make houses, right? So this is still on day 1. Usually at that point, you're still on day 1. You're going to put a couple of houses. For example, let's say like 3 like this. And if you still have some, maybe you start like that. And I do suggest you leave a space here so people can walk, because your people do need to walk to a building to be able to upgrade it, and you're definitely going to want to upgrade your houses, and then you're going to want to leave a space there in the future for your fountain. So that is, you know, that can be usually the end of day 1. You've built a lot of lumber and you've built a lot of houses, so that on day 2 you start with more people and you have, you know, sort of some good reserves of wood at this point. So now you need to go for stone, right? Day 2 is stone. You go over here and again you have people and you have some wood, so you're going to be able to get to stone. Hopefully you have some not too far. You have found them, you know, with your troops like this. And I say not too far because remember that your workers, they need to walk back to a depot when they have resources. So for the wood here, it's fine because, you know, you've placed them close by, so they deliver here. For your stone, this one is pretty fine. This one starts to be a bit far, right? So depending on how far those resources are, you may also want to build your first storage dedicated to stone. So for example over here, and if you want to dedicate it to stone, make sure you restrict to wood and iron, so only the stone will be delivered there. All right, so you're increasing your production, maybe a bit more wood, maybe especially of stone, and then depending on your food reserves, right, this is day 2, day 3, this is when you may want to start making some food. You may want to start making some food. It's worth noting that, you know, your production of food at the beginning is going to be pretty high compared to your population, so you don't need to go overboard. I typically start, you know, with like 2 berry pickers, maybe 1 fisherman hut, then the next day, like day 4, something like this. The goal should be for you to rush to the second level of upgrade of your town hall, which costs, regardless of the difficulty, 150 of wood and 100 of stone. So again, this is why we're rushing stone, we're rushing wood to get there. And then at that point, this is when you can start making an army. The army, do you start on day 3, day 4, day 5? That really starts depending on the difficulty. Are you being attacked or not? All right, but for the first few days, you typically have enough troops. So this is really the start build regardless of the mission. Now we're gonna go more into tips, right, to really master the game, but hopefully this introduction was useful. Tip number 0 is make sure that right away at the beginning of the game, especially if you're first time playing, go into the options and select show health bar by pressing Alt. Then, you go here and you press Alt, because now you're gonna be able to see easily the health bar of everything. It is adding, of course, a lot of colors to your map, but it will help a lot. In particular, to see where the enemies are, right? Sometimes in the forest and things like this, it's very hard to see where they are, but now it is a lot easier. And it's also very easy now to see for all of your food stores and mining stores, how much resources left, right? Because remember, this is limited. This fish pond over here, there is, for example, 210 of food, right? And now it's very easy to see it like this. Tip number 1, use the map to your advantage. Like water and mountain are the best free defense, right? This is like a free defense. This is a free defense. So use this to your advantage, right? Build defenses not in front of it or behind it, but next to it. Tip number 2, the first attack is usually never big enough that you need actual big defenses like full walls everywhere. Usually the only thing you need for the first attack is 1 wooden tower, like this. If you know the attack is coming from here, you put that wooden tower there. You put your archers, regardless of how many you have, into that tower. Why? And by the way, if you don't even have enough, then just put even a couple of walls, like, they don't even need to be linked together. Just a couple of walls like this. This will be way better than if you had nothing, because the enemies will start attacking these before attacking your people. Right? So while they're destroying those things, you kill them. Tip number 3, distance matter. As I said at the beginning, the people will move, right? They will move to build things, they will move also for production. And these, there's 2 lumberjacks. They are going to go from this building to the closest tree. They're going to cut it, they're going to bring it over here, transform it into actual wood, and then deliver the wood to the closest depot or town hall, right? So distance matter, be smart about where you place things, right? So for example, placing this one just in between of the trees and the delivery point, right? And also, as I said, in terms of placing buildings that you want to build together close and not one here, then one there, then one there, then one there. Tip number 4 is that most buildings have an area of work. You can see, for example, over here, this is the area of work of this lumber mill. This means the lumber mill will look for trees in this area. It will not cut outside of this area, which is great when you have enemies, for example, right? I can make sure that the woodcutter will not go there and be killed. It's not so great in the sense that you need to manage this proactively. If all of the trees over here are cut, I need to move it by just right-clicking to somewhere else where there is other trees. Right? So make sure that you move it. You can also sometimes expand it, right, to go further, but be careful that it may go into places where there's enemies. And if you want to just put it back where it is, just click over here. This is not just for the woodcutters, this is for most buildings, including your builders. You may have sometimes a building that you want to build very far, and then you're gonna have to move your builders there. Tip number 5, research is crucial. Definitely don't forget about research, and in particular the town hall research I think are really good. It doesn't mean you should do them all, right? For example, I personally pretty much never do stained wood because I move directly to the stone defenses. Or I pretty much never do any hospital research until I have a lot of people dead, right? So that's the idea. Research is critical, but be a bit smart and don't hesitate maybe to check my full Let's Play series of the campaign to learn which research are good and when. Tip number 6, so some missions are not actually about defending. This mission in particular, for example, is about building ships and putting people in those ships. So what's critical there is, you don't really have the need to always kill everybody on the map or to wait for the next wave before finishing. In this case over here, you probably want to finish, meaning building all of the ships and putting people on them as soon as you can. Alright, so actually even in my Let's Play, there is a couple of missions where you can see I am finishing an objective like this one while my city is being overwhelmed. Because again, you don't need to kill everybody, you just need to finish the objective. Okay. At the same time, tip number 7 is that you shouldn't wait to kill the people on the map. Right? Like we saw over here, there was a couple of enemies. Don't wait. You need to go for them along the way for 2 reasons. The first one is that these enemies usually hide some resources. There's going to be some resources over here, both crystals. When you kill a rebel's hut over here, for example, I will get some soul crystals, but also broader, wood, money, food resources. There's always resources. So that's the first reason. The second reason, even more important, is that usually if you don't attack them, they will either grow in size. There's a couple of, this building that every couple of minutes they will create new troops, or can be even worse is they will all attack at the same time. So do kill these people as much as you can along the way, especially also because your people, they will regain health. So it's better, to attack a bit, then retreat, regain your health, then attack again. Tip number 8, each troop has its usage, and also each troop is good against different one, right? So for example, over here, this one, the usage is to be way outside of your walls, over here, and to be 1 or 2 at a time and explode when the enemy is close by. Versus, if you think about the ballistas, they're good at killing siege engine of the enemy. When the enemy attack with those ones, you want to have a couple of ballistas. While, the trebuchets over here, they're very good to be not on the front line because they are not able to attack very close, but they are able to attack very far. So they're very good to put in the tower on the second line. Right? Then you have, your cavalry. Obviously, cavalry very good to kill archers of the enemy. Not so good to kill, the cavalry of the other enemies. Right? So you need to think about all of the troops, look a bit at their different, powers, what they're good at, and there's good descriptions over here. You can see them here too. There's different description. Of course, you're gonna want also some healers in the back. You're gonna want a couple of spearmen to defend, but then you're gonna want other troops to attack. Right? So look at a bit at all of the troops, and you know that you're gonna need a bit of everything. I will say though that my go-to troop is always the crossbowman. Pretty much regardless of the game, Stronghold or any other game, I'm the same. Crossbowmen are a great one to have. You put tons on towers like this, and you can also attack with them. They're pretty good. Tip number 9 is resources are mostly limited. If I look at a mine, actually all of my mine, you can see over here, this is empty deposit. These ones, right? This is not empty, but there is 240. I take 240, then it's empty. Here, this one 300. The same for the berries. The berries, there's 20. They will replenish, but very slowly. In the sea, the fish, and there's no more. I think I used them all. But yeah, the fish, they don't come back. But there is a way to have unlimited. So if you go into the research over here, right at the university level, you're going to have the eternal stone source and the eternal iron source. This one will have to be placed also in different places. Like this is an iron ore field. This is where you can put unlimited iron works. And similarly for the stone, instead of white one, these are the yellow ones where you put the unlimited. And for food, this is the farms. The farms are unlimited. So at some point, you don't need them right away, but you do want to get there at some point. Otherwise, you will not have any resource on the map and then you're dead. Before we talk about tips number 10, please smash the like button if you're still watching, and don't hesitate to share in the comments any other tip for the community. But tip number 10 is never stop growing. It is really critical. You may think that this city over here is huge. When we're talking about almost 1,000 people, tons of farm, etc. I can guarantee you it may be huge, but it's still not enough. It's never enough because the enemies will keep growing. The waves will get bigger and bigger. They will slowly but surely, make more and more dance into your defenses. So never stop growing. If you feel you survive a wave easily, that's great, but the next attack may be 10 times bigger, so don't stop. or you're dead. And on this, we're gonna conclude this video, but again, if you want to see more about the game, don't hesitate to check in the video description below for my full let's play of the campaign. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.